This is Helping of Happiness, episode number 144. Today we have on Niki Olson, who's a licensed clinical mental health therapist and coach, and she's teaching us 5 tips to calm anxiety to better hear the spirit. Plus, we get to hear all about her brand new podcast, Meaningful Minutes, where we can learn actionable tools to feel more confident in our efforts towards spiritual growth, be more inspired and closer to the spirit in 10 minutes or less per day. Hi, I'm Hillary Hess, and you're listening to Helping of Happiness. I am a crazy mom of 7 kids who loves to build memories through eating delicious family recipes and going on adventures with my family. On this podcast, you'll be introduced to light-filled people and ideas that inspire me to be a better mom and help me bring family closer together and closer to Jesus Christ. Hello! We have Niki coming up in just a minute, but very quickly, before we go with her, I wanted to tell you about our newest addition to our freebie resource library. So I keep all of my printables and extra menus, like for the holidays, and our 3 weeks of dinner planning, and our menu workshop, all the different things that we have in my freebie resource library. And this week, since we have Easter coming up, I just added our Easter side dishes. It's a little catalog of all of our Easter side dishes that we like to use for Easter. And all you have to do to receive access to this free library is I just send you the password in your email. It's super easy. I'll put a link in the show notes, so just punch in your email there, and then you'll be able to have the code that gets you into our freebie resource library, and you can have access to all of those different things. I mean, we have tons and tons and tons of stuff in there. We have different chore charts you can print off. We have our cookie catalogs, and we have our Christmas dinner planning and Cinco de Mayo and so many great things. So the newest thing in there is the Easter side dishes. So you're going to want to go look at that. There's just really tasty things in there. So without any further ado, here is our interview with Niki. Hey, Niki, I'm so happy you can be back on with us today. It's just a treat. We've had you on several times talking about personal revelation and self-compassion and ADHD and even our mom break that never happened because of COVID. And I'm so pumped that you are starting your own podcast, and we get to talk all about that today. So, Niki, say hello.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. I always love chatting with you. It's so fun.
I do too. I was so happy when I saw that you had a podcast coming out, and I've listened to every episode. So I'm really excited. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we'll go into your new podcast, Meaningful Minutes.
Sounds good. So I run a business. My business is called Niki Olson Coaching. So I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor in the state of Utah. But online, I do coaching for LDS women who want to enrich their connections with their true divine self, with God, and with others. And I do it through therapy skills with spiritual explanations and connections that way.
I love it, love it, love it. And then you were like coaching me before we got on, so I'm not paying you, so thank you. I would love to hear how, I mean, I know a little bit about how this came to pass, but I don't really know the full story. So tell me how this podcast got going and, you know, what led you to that? Because I know podcasting was not really going to be your thing.
No, not on my radar. Because when I started the business, my goal was to be on other people's podcasts, partly for time, you know, and it's a whole lot easier to be interviewed by someone than to keep up with the podcast every week and do that. And so I didn't really have any intention of doing that, you know, and I think it was about December, I did a survey with my audience just to kind of see where they're at. I like to do that. And I have a marketing coach that's been helping me do that just to see what the needs are of the people that I'm serving. And one of the things is where do you see my content and where do you want this content to be? And so I, Facebook, Instagram, blogs, those kinds of things. And my coach slipped in their podcast and I was like, oh, whatever, we'll see. A couple of people will click that button, and it started rolling in, and like 90% of the people said they wanted me to be on a podcast or do a podcast. And I was like sick to my stomach because I was like, what in the world? I don't have time to do that. I don't want to be like, all the mind games that your brain plays, like, oh, you're just going to be another voice in the crowd. It's going to be created for nothing. No one's going to listen to it. All of those downer thoughts that you have. And how am I going to have time to do that? And so I was like, okay, I have this brilliant idea. I'm going to pray about it and get an answer of no. And that way I don't have to do it. I was like, this will work. I'll just go in and be like, all right, God, you really don't want me to do this, right? Like, this is a really bad idea, right? And all of a sudden, as soon as I said that prayer, like this wash of peace came over me, and all of the ideas started flooding in. And in fact, like one of the first things that popped into my mind was the name, Meaningful
Oh
Minutes.
my gosh.
And
I'm
I was like,
actually kind of jealous of that because I was searching for helping of happiness for months before I figured
right?
that out.
That's what I felt like. Like, I'm gonna be 6 months looking for these things and figuring all this out, because it's taken me a year and a half to figure out my business, and it's still not even figured out. Like, I'm trying to, your niche and your
Oh,
marketing and all
yes.
of these things. And I'm like, how do I add a podcast into the mix of all of that? And so I was like, Meaningful Minutes, what does that even mean? I don't even like, what do you want me to talk about? Like, what would this be about? I don't want to go and find all of these interviews and doing all of this, plus running my own thing. And so one of the things that was sort of revealed to me in that prayer too was, you're already doing a weekly podcast basically in your Instagram content. Just put it into a podcast first, and then it is long form content that people can listen to. One, when they're not on social media, they don't have to see it, but everything on social media goes away in 24 hours.
Hmm.
And if someone's not on there, or
It's like a hamster wheel on there too. It's
yes,
like you're
yeah,
constantly trying to put new stuff on, and
yeah, stay at the
oh,
top so
the
people can
podcast is
see.
way better.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I'm not recreating the wheel here. I'm making my life easier, and this could work out. And the other thing that kept coming to my mind is, I need to create this for the busy woman. I need to have something that isn't something that's too long. And then I was like, that's why it's minutes. Like, it's just minutes. This is just something that is a quick snippet. So the podcast is skills for LDS women who want inspiration and confidence, and in 10 minutes or less. And so I use mental health skills with a spiritual twist to it every week. And this first set of podcasts is all about anxiety. And so we've been diving into anxiety and what else we talked about? Overthinking, perfectionism, internal peace, and just in 10 minutes or less. And I always have a kind of a handout that will go with it, because you're going to be listening in the car, doing your dishes, folding the
Yes.
laundry. You don't want to be like, oh no, I got to go do this. I got to write this down. So there's always going to be a handout with it that has the quotes that I use from the podcast, any of the skills that I have, or outlines of what we talked about will all be in a handout that people can easily click in the show notes and have it sent to their email for when they're ready to print it or have time to look at it. They can have that as well.
And your handouts are so pretty. I'm signed
Oh,
up to
thank
your
you.
list. And your branding is gorgeous. I
Thank
love it.
you.
It just looks really nice, and it's just very easy to follow. So that's one reason I really like the handout, because after listening to it, it's nice to have that and go, oh, okay, all right. I'm being reminded about this again and how this goes. And I can even
Yeah.
write some notes to myself on there if I want to.
Lay it down somewhere where you can see it and remember to do it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Or I can even re-listen because it's only 10 minutes or less. Then I can re-listen for the second time and kind of go through my thing and go, okay, oh yeah, that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really like that a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it has come together way easier than my brain told me it would. It's definitely God telling me this is what you need to do. And I have had lots of inspiration along the way. I mean, that was in December, and I think I had my podcast ready to go by the end of January.
Which
And I
is
was,
crazy. That is
yeah,
amazing.
I was thinking like 6 months to a year, like this would be in
When
coming
it's
together,
time, it is time.
right?
Well, and I think that says something about you really acting on that inspiration when you get it, because we can all have those little thoughts and not do much about it or go about it very slowly, which I have totally been guilty of in the past and even the present sometimes, where you're like, yeah, 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 I know we need to do that. And then it just, so
Yep.
I think it's great that you
Yeah.
just jumped on it and let's just do it. If we're going to do this, we're all in.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? Oh, I forgot when I got that, I had that prayer and I had, was just still like you're receiving the revelation. You're like, oh, that's wonderful. But still on the other side of it, there's still that overwhelm and just like,
Oh,
how
for
does
sure.
this work technically? And how is all this? And the thought came to my mind, you need to call Hillary. And I was like, if I call Hillary right now, I'm just going to cry. Like, I'll
You
just
should
cry
have.
to her.
Therapist for once.
I was like, I'll just be a blubbering mess the whole time. And then I don't want to put that on her. Those thoughts where you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I should have called you. I should have done
I
that.
know.
But you
You
were the
should have
first
followed
person,
through to that inspiration.
right? You were the first person that popped to my mind. Like, okay, I need to call her. I mean, I've messaged you a couple times, but I should have just called you. And
I'm glad you messaged me. I'm glad I could do something to help.
yes. So yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind with it. Um, Launch week is the week of March 1st. And so I'll be doing a bunch of giveaways, and every day I'm going to do a giveaway. People who are listening and leaving reviews and interacting and sharing all about the podcast. So should be a really fun week.
A launch week, which is right now. So
Yes.
exciting.
Yes. I'm so excited. And as I'm kind of, creating content more for March and things like that, what I'm realizing is this is just, it's easier for my mind to kind of think through this way in content. But I also feel like I'm connecting more with my listeners and with my audience because I can talk without like being cut off in 15 seconds and without like, oh, I got 2 minutes to say something and I'll come back tomorrow and say something. Like I get a full 10 minutes to just explain the whole concept of what I want people to understand or know or feel. And one of the things I really, really want people to walk away from my podcast feeling is that they're already doing enough. I feel like there's so much out there that is like, try this, do this. And then you walk away feeling like, oh, I'm just terrible because I'm not doing that. Or I'm not, I'll never be able to do that. So I want people to feel like, oh, I didn't realize I was already receiving revelation. I don't have to change anything. I don't have to do anything more. Oh my gosh, I'm already doing some strategies to deal with my anxiety. I just didn't know that's what that was. And now I can replicate it more, right? Or, oh, I do find peace when I'm doing that. Now I can turn to those things more and do that. So my hope is that they'll walk away just feeling uplifted and inspired rather than, "Ugh, I'll never be able to do
There
that."
are more things added to my list,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, and you've been talking a lot about personal revelation, which is one of my favorite things to talk about with you. And so
Yes.
if our listeners have not listened to that episode that we did together about you learning about personal revelation and then in turn turning it into an entire packet for people to go through and learn how to receive it themselves, I'm going to put a link in the show notes for
Okay.
that because
Yeah.
you're such a good teacher about
Oh.
how to do that. And I just, every time I talk to you, I'm like, gosh, great. I can do this. And I do this a lot. How do I forget? How do I forget?
Yes. It's so funny. So yeah, I have a whole course on receiving revelation, but what I realized is we as women we put mental roadblocks in our way of receiving revelation because we start thinking, well, I must not be worthy to receive that answer, or I doubt my ability to hear God throughout the day, right? Like that's I believe it for other people, but I don't necessarily believe it for me, or I don't know how to use the atonement in my life on a daily basis, right? And so I'm actually creating a whole new course. Actually, it's going to be like a group coaching kind of course, and it's going to be called Removing Roadblocks to Revelation. And it's going to be all
Ooh.
about removing the mental roadblocks to receiving revelation, the things that we doubt about ourselves, so that we can remove that doubt and be able to reconnect with God and feel the Spirit more in our lives. And we're going to do it in a group. So we'll meet once a week and just go over some skills, and be able to discuss with each other. And I feel like that community aspect of that is really going to help as well.
Yeah, it'll be nice to get other people's ideas. That'll be so
Hmm.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, now talking about roadblocks. Do
Yes.
you mind if we talk about your podcast that you put out about it's your 5 tips to calming anxiety so you can hear the spirit
Absolutely.
better?
Yep.
Especially as I am coming off of this Texas blizzard disaster with our power and water and all our issues that we've had. I think
Yeah.
I need you to calm my anxiety so I can recognize the spirit. And I know that I've heard it and I've felt it so much during all of this, but
Hmm.
this is something that really caught my eye and my ear when I was listening to
Hmm.
this. I'm like, this is something that I do deal with a lot. I get in this little cycle that you're going to tell
Hmm.
us about,
Hmm.
and it's yeah. Why don't you just tell us and then
Yes.
and
Yes.
then I can go
And
into it more.
this is one of those mental roadblocks I feel like women get into is they feel like, so they get anxiety, they don't hear the spirit because, and then they start feeling like, oh my gosh, I must have done something wrong because I don't feel the spirit right now, or I don't hear the spirit right now. And so then they feel like, "Ah, I can't trust God, or I don't feel faithful now because I don't hear the spirit." And then we get more anxious because that's happening, right? And it's not that the spirit left us, that we did something wrong. It's that anxiety is really loud and the spirit is a still small voice. The spirit is there speaking to us. We didn't do anything wrong. We're not unworthy. We're not unloved. We're not unvaluable. But that's what comes to us when we can't feel the spirit in that, in like, what am I doing wrong? That's often we say to ourselves, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I hear the spirit? And it's just the anxiety is loud and it affects our body. Hearing the spirit is in our mind and in our bodies, right? It's not just a mental thing, but anxiety affects your mind. It creates a lot of clutter and keeps you from focusing. And then your body doesn't feel peaceful and still, right? And if our body isn't peaceful and still, then, and it's agitated, then the spirit has a hard time working through that, right? We're not sinning, we're not doing anything wrong. It's just hard to feel in that moment, right? And so it's often we'll ask ourselves, well, do I need to work harder at getting the spirit, or do I need to work harder at getting rid of the anxiety? And I think it's like a chicken or the egg situation. We don't know.
Yeah,
Do
this is
both.
the cycle
Do
thing I'm
both.
talking about.
Yes. Work from both ends and you'll have great results. So, one of the things that really helps calm anxiety and reconnect and feel the spirit is connecting with your 5 senses, because your body is made up of senses. Your body is what gives you the ability to sense what is around you. Okay. Prior to coming to earth, we were spirits and we came to earth to get a body. So our body must provide us with something that is valuable to help us, right? And when we are feeling anxious, our mind and bodies and spirits are all on different teams. They're conflicting with each other and they're not communicating. By noticing your senses around you, just looking around and noticing some colors, textures, shapes, looking for or listening for background sounds, noticing how your fingers feel or how your pants or your shirt feels. Just that simple act can reconnect your mind, your body, and your spirit together, decrease that tension in your body that keeps you from feeling the spirit, and quiet the clutter in your mind or the racing thoughts, so the spirit is um, able to be heard and felt. because that's decreasing. So that's one way.
This makes so much sense to me because my walks make my whole life way better. And
Yes.
since we had this crazy weather, I hadn't been getting out because it was so cold. I mean,
Yep.
just like bitterly, bitterly cold. And I was just kind of stressed out about everything else that was happening, when your power's going on and off every 30 minutes and you're
Right.
just running around like a crazy person. And today I just said, that's it. I don't have any boots because we live in Texas and I don't have snow
Yeah.
boots. I just don't have
Right.
any. My husband had some because of a camp out that he went on. So I put on his boots, which are way bigger than my feet,
Yeah.
all these little layers because it was still freezing out. But I went around and I clomped around in that crunchy snow for about an hour on my walk. And even though it was freezing, I felt so much better when I got
Hmm.
back. Just the
Yes.
crunch in the snow and the ducks and the air and the trees, and it just helps me so much. So
Yeah.
that's huge. All those, and I can totally see that all the senses are all going during that
Yes. Yeah.
experience.
Your senses are going, but also that's another tip to calming anxiety is moving your body,
So I'm
because
doing a double whammy on my
you were
walk.
doing, that's
Yes.
why going outside to exercise is so helpful, is because
Mhm.
it's very senses oriented, right?
Mhm.
Like when you're outside, you're smelling things and you're hearing sounds and you're looking at all the cool new things, right? And also, anxiety builds up energy in your body. Okay. So
Oh,
as your
that's what I
body's,
was feeling. It was pumping. It was
yes. Yeah. And so then your muscles absorb that. And that's why your muscles start contracting. And that's why we feel tension in certain places. So your heart's a muscle, right? And those things start contracting. Um, and, and when that happens, it's contracting to try to burn energy for you. And so if you can go out there and burn that energy and bring that anxiety level down, there's a whole bunch of other things that it does, but it also increases your ability to, what's the anti-stress chemicals. So it releases anti-stress chemicals into your body when you're exercising, so that when stress and when anxiety is coming, then those chemicals are counteracting it.
I'm just burning my anxiety on my walk. I just
Yes,
love it. So
exactly.
good.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, give me the other tips when I've done my
Yes,
walk and I come back and I think I'm good, but then I'm not. What's my
yes.
next idea?
Yes. So the other one is reach out for help. It's okay to reach out for help and support and talk with people, professional help. I think that's a stigma sometimes, is that we think about reaching out for professional support means I must be weak or I must be broken, or something will be wrong with me if I do that. And it's not. We have lived through a global pandemic, and the amount of energy that we have absorbed, negative energy that we've absorbed during this time, and have not been able to release because we're not going outside, right? Like we're not interacting with other humans and just talking with them. We can't go do our normal things to do that. We need new ways and new skills to develop that. And it's okay to reach out for professional support and help during that time.
I think professional support, especially with the right therapist, is huge. Finding someone that is really right for you. We've seen that in our
Yes.
family be so helpful for
Yeah.
different things they've been going through.
Yes. Yes. And then practicing meditation. Okay.
Okay, I'm
So,
just getting into meditation. So I'm really excited you're talking about this because I'm just starting to try to do it on a more regular basis. And I'm still trying to figure out what is the right meditation for me. So I'm really excited to hear what you say
okay.
about this.
There's different types of meditation. So, what you're probably thinking of, and what a lot of people kind of think of when they think of meditation, is like a guided meditation, someone walking you through and talking to you the whole time. And it's for a specific purpose. So they'll be talking about a certain emotion, like here's a guided meditation for fear, and talking about letting it go and visualizing it, different things like that. So those are guided meditations, and good just schedule in and have as part of your day. The meditation that I would practice is using your senses. It's reconnecting with that. So if you are only using your senses when you're feeling stress, you're not going to be very good at it. Number one. Number two, you're not going to remember to do it because you're not practicing it, right? And number three, you're not going to have any strength build up behind it to use for bigger things. So then your brain is going to tell you this doesn't work for me because you haven't practiced it, right? So it's kind of like signing up for a marathon and then saying, yeah, I'll show up on race day and start running, right? Well, of course it's not going to work and you're going to be exhausted and frustrated and never want to do that again. But signing up for a marathon's a big thing. Of course, you would practice and train and give yourself ample time to do that. So practice using your senses when you're not stressed, when you're not anxious, and practice using your senses while you're doing things. Don't go find a quiet room or don't go find time when you're not doing something. Who has that time to do it when they need it? Right?
Yeah.
You need to practice it while you're doing the dishes. Practice it while you're picking your kids up from school. Practice, in those moments when you would actually need it. Practice it when you're not feeling that stress and anxiety, so that you're good at it when you need it, and you figured out what senses you like for what situations.
So give me some ideas of how to remind myself to
Yep.
practice these things, because that's tricky for me. I'll
Yep.
have these best intentions right now, and I will probably make myself a note and maybe even practice during my scripture study time when it's quiet.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure I'm going to totally forget as soon as I get jumped into my day. But I
Yes.
want to remember this and I want to try this.
Okay. So pick 2 or 3 activities that you do every single day
Okay.
and incorporate your senses with that activity. So like brushing your teeth. Every time you pick up your toothbrush, notice how the toothbrush feels. Notice how the ground feels underneath your feet. Notice gravity on your body. Notice how the toothpaste tastes. So every time you're picking up your toothpaste, it's going to be second nature that you do it, right?
Okay.
Like even write down the 3 things that you're going to do. Like every time I touch my cell phone, I'm just going to notice how the cell phone feels, or quickly notice the ground underneath my feet, or notice some sounds around me. Just something that like you're having frequent contact with every day, getting in your car, eating, drinking water, whatever it might be, incorporate your senses with that activity. So it's activity based, kind of habit stacking. It's already a
Yeah, as
habit
I
that you're
say,
doing
habit
that.
stacking, you're hooking in a habit. They have all these different names for that, but
Yep.
that's so good. Well, and I have Invisalign, so I'm brushing my teeth all day long. So
Yeah.
that's a great, easy one for me that I could even put a sticky note on my mirror to remind myself when I'm in there, and then
Yep.
that'd be so good.
Yes. Yes.
And
I always tell people do a sticky note with the number 5 on it. Then
okay,
people aren't
for
asking
five
you like,
sentences.
yep, what is that for?
That is so good. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
doing that. That's so great. I love it. So
And
good.
then, yeah, then the last tip is to accept anxiety. Um, I think we have in our minds that we can get to this place where we'll never feel anxiety. And then when you feel it, you feel like you're doing something wrong or you're bad or this isn't ever going to work because you're feeling anxiety. We live in a world where things are happening constantly around us that are anxiety provoking. You're going to feel anxiety.
I
Anxiety is
felt a lot
good
of
sometimes.
anxiety this week.
Yes. Yes. Anxiety is
And it did
actually a
move me to
protection.
action. It did move me to action. I got my
Yes.
windows covered. I got my
Yep.
vents closed and the doors shut and the water filled in the tubs. And I mean, it got
Exactly.
me moving. So it was really good. But
Yep.
man, was I like have a hard time calming that down after I got those things done. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's motivating in that sense. It gets you going, but you want to be able to manage it, right? But you don't want to feel like you have to find a place where you'll never feel anxious.
Right.
Because then we won't ever work on it, right?
I
Because
won't
we're
ever
like,
do anything.
yeah, yeah. Because we're like, I always feel it, so it never goes away. But instead, instead of trying to avoid feeling anxious, instead try to control what you do when you feel anxious.
Mm.
Like accept that it's coming, but what am I going to do when it does come? And be prepared for that. So shifting your focus on what you're focusing on rather than trying to stop it from coming, focus on what you're going to do when it comes, because it's inevitable that it is coming for everybody.
And that's when we plug in our five senses, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Five senses, move your body, seek out help, those kinds of things can help with that.
So helpful, Niki, always. You're always teaching me so much. I love it.
So happy to.
Was there anything else that you wanted to share on that or on your podcast?
I will be having a new episode every Monday. Monday morning, you can hop on and put it in your
Monday
rotation.
Meaningful Minutes. I love
There
it.
we go. There we go.
We just need to call you Mickey instead of Nikki.
I know, right?
Meaningful Minutes with Niki. Just kidding.
Yes, yeah. And so come on over, follow me on Niki Olson Coaching on Instagram.
You have so much on there, and I really love that you're doing a podcast, because I am more of a podcast listener than a social media person, but I know there's a lot of people that are more on social media, so it's nice that you have both.
Yes.
So I'm really excited that you get to be in my ear on a regular basis.
Yes.
It's great.
I'm so excited and I have had a couple people that have listened to it, and they've said it's so nice because I can share this with somebody and they don't have to be on Instagram to do it.
Yeah.
Or I don't have to be in the noise of Instagram or just the scrolling mode and not wanting to hear something like that.
Because there's a lot of times I'm popping on Instagram to check in on a friend or, something like that, or just look something up, whatever it is. So I don't have the 10 minutes or something to watch a live or a, Instagram, what are those called? The IGTVs or something like that. Yeah. Like that has to be more of a planned activity. So
exactly.
Podcasting just slips in my day so much easier.
Exactly.
So I'm really happy, but I'm glad you have both, because you've done a lot of really good things with your lives and things too. So we just get Niki all over it.
So fun. So fun.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I can't wait. So everybody go follow Niki. And is there anything else? What am I missing? I guess I usually have the helpful, happy questions, but we've already done those before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
What's your favorite food this week?
I know, right?
Thanks for being with us again this week. We love having you with us so much. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you share it with a friend. That way they can be enjoying and learning all these things that you just learned, and I'm sure it will bring goodness to their life. Go follow Niki and make sure that you grab her outline for Seeking Revelation. It's really helped me a ton. I love all the little tips that she has, and I've gone through it and I've done the work, and it really, really works. So I hope that you go ahead and do that. I have all the links in the show notes. Have a great week.